The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with the panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Baum. Today, we have a number of listener emails asking a very important question about the situation in Israel and Gaza and the deadline that has been imposed by the American regime and now also by the Israeli Prime Minister, Saturday at noon. Now, is that noon American Eastern time or is that noon Israeli time? Because that was a question that the second I heard Queen Sickle in America say it. And then, of course, Trump had to say, well, that's just a suggestion that he had. And I knew, of course, that Netanyahu was going to go with it. My first thought was, are they talking Israeli time or, like Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon? I mean,
probably talking Israeli time.
Israeli time. Okay.
I would think.
Okay.
Because the United States is not the center of the damn world.
Exactly. But I think everybody here, or most people here, Americans, are going to be thinking U.S. time.
Oh, of course they are.
12.
Yeah, and I think probably Trump means that as well, because I'm not even sure that Trump understands that there are different time zones in the world. So yeah. My guess is that 12 noon was what he picked on a Saturday because that's about the time it takes him to get up, hang around the house a little bit, do his hair and makeup, and then be ready to step in front of the spotlight in some way or in a camera or whatever he's got planned for noon on Saturday. So it's probably our time. It's probably
so.
Eastern
What time is that Israeli time? They're ahead of us.
They're way ahead of us. Yeah. I don't know what it is exactly.
This will actually have already happened by the time noon rolls around Eastern time in the United States.
Maybe should we discuss what it is that we're talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. I mean, Trump the other day said that if all the hostages aren't released by 12 noon, that there will be hell to pay, I think was the exact phrase that he used.
Or hell will break loose or something.
Or something along those lines. And so I just think that is... And then he kind of repeated it yesterday in his Oval Office talk that Elon Musk crashed. I think he brought it up again and said, yeah, well, we'll see what happens on Saturday at 12 noon. And, so I think he's probably bluffing, but his stand on Israel and with regard to the situation over there and the war in Gaza and his plans to turn Gaza into the new Atlantic City, which worked out so well the first time, is just more stupid shit from Trump that probably we shouldn't really even take seriously and just, concentrate on the stuff that he's doing here, because I don't think that he's really, he's going to put troops into Gaza. That's insane.
Well, however,
he's got to get some serious pushback on that from the people around him, and be made to understand what a disaster that would be. So,
what he's already told the King of Jordan that he's just going to take Gaza. He doesn't even have to buy it because there's nothing to buy. So he's just going to push all the Palestinians out and. That if Egypt and Jordan don't take them all, there will be a withholding of U.S. aid. And of course, there's been the usual Trump. Everybody thinks that this is great, which Palestinian people don't, of course. The Saudis don't, the Egyptians don't, the Jordanians don't. I mean, nobody really is excited about this, I suppose, except the Israelis and MAGA people, and probably Elon Musk and his Muskalites. But yeah. And remember back when Jared Kushner said that there's a lot of nice waterfront property in Gaza. So, and then Trump was saying that no Palestinian will be able to come back because they'll have much better places to live. But he's already told the King Abdullah when he came to the White House that Trump is just going to take Gaza because there's nothing to buy. So we already own it, apparently, we Americans. Prime Minister of Israel said also that at noon on Saturday, if all the hostages aren't back, he'll simply start the war again.
Yeah,
so
that if Netanyahu is saying that, that's something that you need to take seriously. As far as King Abdullah is concerned, he went to the Oval Office yesterday. We're recording this on a Wednesday, so it was Tuesday. Met with the president and said that his country would take in 2,000 Palestinian children with cancer and other illnesses from Gaza. They've been doing that in Jordan for a while now. So they've been treating cancer patients from Gaza for months. And so it's one of those, like, we're already doing it, but we're going to tell Trump about it because we know he doesn't know that we're already doing it. And he can declare victory and say that, he got us to take some concessions, to make some concessions to him in exchange for I don't know what. But the line that Egypt and Jordan are walking right now, Egypt saying that they wanted to work with Trump to achieve a comprehensive and just peace in the region by reaching a just settlement of the Palestinian cause, is basically saying nothing. It's not agreeing, it's not disagreeing. It's kind of like, yeah, this is what we've been doing for 100 years now. So there's nothing particularly new there. The part of this, if you don't mind me saying, that really drives me crazy is American Jews on Twitter, at least, seem to be rallying around this idea as if it would be a good idea for Israel. And there was a woman who tweeted out something along the lines of the Democratic Party has lost the Jews. Trump is doing the right thing by them, and there's no reason for them to remain Democrats anymore, because look at all the things that Trump is doing, saying that he's going to basically ethnically cleanse Gaza of all the Palestinians. I don't think that they're looking at the big picture there. They're not looking long term at what this would mean for the region, what this would mean for Egypt and Jordan. Jordan has a very tough relationship with the Palestinians that make up something like 60 to 80% of their population, keeping them in line. And we really don't. The last thing Israel wants is a destabilized Jordan. People have short memories, but in 1970, Jordan, the king of Jordan, kicked the Palestinians out of the East Bank after George Habash, his organization, had hijacked 4 airliners and landed them near Amman, and he finally had enough of them and kicked them out. A month that was known as Black September, although the foreign minister of Jordan called it White September because it was them taking control of their own country back, kicking out the PLO and the other radical groups for the Palestinians, moving them to Beirut. And Syria actually invaded Jordan with the goal of taking down the crown prince or the king. And the United States, Richard Nixon was president at the time, had the 82nd Airborne in the air ready to land in Jordan to fight off the Syrians. The Israelis also volunteered troops and air support to cut off the Syrians, but the Jordanian army managed to turn them back and send them back to Syria, and the problem ended. The last thing that Israel wants is an enemy Jordan, full of angry Palestinians. Utter disaster for Israel. Probably suicide for Israel.
Scott's right. This is a region where all the players really do. You have to look at how it impacts all the players in the region. And I think sometimes the only thing that American foreign policy looks at, unfortunately, is its impact on Israel, maybe a little bit on the impact on Saudi Arabia. But we do not take the impact on some of these other nations, Syria being another one of those nations that, hey, they're just right now, they've got a tough road ahead of them to get their country on the right track. And some of the statements coming out of the leadership of Syria, the new leadership of Syria, says that they're really trying to, make some positive changes compared to the previous regime. So the impact, again, we always look at this from an American-centric attitude and sometimes from an Israeli-centric attitude. And we forget that, all right, yeah, today this may look good for Israel. It may. I'm not saying it is, but it may look good for Israel. It's what happens down the line when we're talking 5 years from now. If we took a more long-term approach to some things, had more long-term thinking, considered what the possibilities were as far as what could, what a plan that we put into place could have as far as impacting a region, I think we would be a far more successful world power. I think we would be a far more successful, good partner to achieving things like lasting peace for everyone. And Scott's right. The last thing that Israel wants is a destabilized Jordan. I mean, and they definitely don't want a destabilized Egypt. I mean, there's a whole bunch of players around here where you do not want to see these. You might not like Sisi's regime in Egypt. You may not like it, but right now it's stable. It may not be it may not be your cup of tea, but it's still stable. And that, in many cases, in this region, in the region that we're talking about, in the Middle East, stability is number one. That is first and foremost, because without stability, you can't move in any direction. You cannot get peace. It just won't happen. We want Israel to be stable. We also want Israel to be consistent. And we want Israel and we want the United States, if they're going to be big players in this region, to start thinking long-term instead of short-term. And I think that that's a very important thing that in our foreign policy, we used to do it. We actually used to be pretty good at this. When you talk about it right after World War II, when we started, rebuilding Japan and Germany, this was for long term. They knew it wasn't going to be done overnight, but they understood the benefits of doing it long term, and it has paid benefits. Nobody can say that we do not have a good friend in Germany. Nobody can say that we do not have a good friend in Japan, and that those two stable areas now, that stability of Germany helps stabilize all of Europe. That stability in Japan helped an awful lot when we're talking about South Korea. So again, taking that long-term plan, not taking the short, quick, instant gratification move and saying, oh yeah, well, this is great. Or I did this, I'm Donald Trump and I did this. Okay, well, you did it. But, 10 years from now, they're going to be looking back and saying, that son of a bitch did this. And we can look back, and I'm not just saying this, Trump, it's not. We can look back so many places and say, presidents of the United States who took a short-term view of foreign policy and that wanted to be involved in a region made some really dumb decisions. And you can see him, Kennedy, with Vietnam. I mean, there's just so many examples where it was short-term thinking.
I also wanted to add, I was thinking about, of course, Trump is being very, very vague about all this. I was thinking about bin Laden and his great dislike and rejection of having American, like infidel, presence in Saudi Arabia, for example. And the Saudis do not want Americans, us or American presence in Gaza. They do not want. They've made it very clear that this idea that Trump has, or plan, whatever you want to call it, is unacceptable. I don't know who Trump would envision be living there, but he's saying, well, no Palestinian is going to be able to come back because they'll have a better place to live, which of course is nonsense. I mean, he has no concept of what he's saying. He's just saying whatever comes to into his head. We in the United States are already, under Trump, of course, making Canada, as we were talking last week, very angry with us. And Canada is where the United States gets most of the oil that we are able to use. We get some oil from the United States, and I know, Mark, that I'm falling into your American-centric perspective. The rest of our oil that we use comes from Saudi Arabia. To push into the Middle East in this type of manner and force people from their homes when they don't want to go, and this is not our business to force people from their homes, to rebuild the area so that it's livable for them and have a fair and a just and a stable area that benefits everybody, and thinking long term, as you were saying, rather than adding destabilization to the area and saying, well, we'll just take it because this is uninhabitable, and so we'll just take it, and then we'll make a big resort out of it and know the people can't come back, and this is good for I'm a real estate developer, so this is good for me, or I'll own it, or I mean, this sounds like a personal interest that benefits Trump and Trump's family. I mean, and that, of course, is what is it, the Logan Act? That, I mean, the whole thing is beyond despicable. That's going to destabilize the entire area and would destabilize it for a long time. And the Saudis can decide that they are not going to sell us any more oil if they want. And that's going to destabilize the United States even further. And inflation's already gone back up again to where it was in June. And so, I mean, short-term thinking is really going to, it's not going to make America great again. It's going to put America into a depression that America is never going to see the end of. It's what's going to happen.
Right. And, if they, when they talk about, and Scott loves to talk about this incident, 1983 Beirut, if you put that, I don't know, Mar-a-Lago on in Gaza, if you don't think that you're not going to see another Beirut, you really are living in a different world. And yeah, we've got to get out of the American-centric thing, and we've also got to start thinking more long-term. Scott's very correct that, some Jews are going to Twitter and saying, "Oh yeah, this is a great idea." Yeah, again, short-term thinking, and again, very zero-sum thinking. That it's all for me and nothing for anybody else, which is extremely Trumpian. We're going to get everything, you're going to get nothing, and that's kind of the way it works. But we're going to tell you you're going to get something. And to all those people that are supporting this, all I can say to you is, he's telling you you're going to get all this stuff. Well, take a look go down to the grocery store and try to buy a dozen eggs and see what that looks like. Go get some gasoline, see what that costs you. Go out there and see, exactly really look into some of the things that are being done. And you might see that the only people getting screwed is going to be you. It's not going to be Trump and his billionaire buddies. It's going to be you.
So, Scott, what do you anticipate seeing on Saturday, since Netanyahu has made this declaration? I mean, as you say,
I should have looked that up. Sorry, but I didn't see that Netanyahu. It doesn't surprise me that Netanyahu would echo what Trump is saying. Because the best thing that could happen to Netanyahu right now is American boots on the ground in Gaza.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
He pulls his army out. We put our army in, and now we're back in Iraq in 2006, 2007. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know exactly what to expect on Saturday. Trump will probably find some way to declare some kind of victory. I hope the hostages get released. Every time these hostages come out of there, it's a wonderful, if horrifying, moment to see what they look like and how strong Hamas still looks in Gaza. With a lot of people shooting off guns and things like that, and carrying the flags, and I like, did we even dent them in in Gaza. It's hard to make a case that this has been a victorious battle waged there. And granted, with one hand tied behind their backs, as horrible as it has been because of Hamas's habit of putting civilians in harm's way rather than their soldiers. But what like to get more involved in this than we already are is just a flat out disaster.
Yes, because we become the bad guys. And if you think that the world will not expect us to fight with one hand behind our back as well, you're out of your mind, because they are going to expect it. Because we're the big bad United States, and we have all of this, and this is just this little area of Gaza, and there's going to be expectations. You're not going to be able to go in there and just wipe the whole place out and make a glowing parking lot out of it, like a lot of people might think you're going to be able to do. And you're going to be responsible, and the world will hold you responsible. And let's face it, right now, the United States doesn't look all that good to the rest of the world. We don't look that good at all.
I actually wonder about something you just said. We don't we're not going to do that. I hope you're right about that. But what if he dropped, one of these mother of all bombs, the Moab, or he dropped a daisy cutter, which is like one step below nuclear in its ability to cause devastation, will suck the eyeballs out of anybody who's hiding in a tunnel, will just be really devastating. If Trump were to do that in retaliation for the hostages not going out, first of all, he'd be killing the hostages.
Absolutely.
But then he'd also be putting the United States in the middle of this thing in a way that we've avoided so far.
I guess when I think of this, I think that maybe there's some rationality that we can count on. What's the one of the first rules of international relations? So you have to assume that all the actors are rational. And the fact is that in many cases, in the case of like North Korea, they're not. And I think in the case of the United States at this point in time, depending, and again, I'm not saying we're not yet. We may very, very well still be rational. But how we move forward with this, because this is a little bit different than saying we're going to turn Greenland into red, white, and blue land, which is stupid. This is a little different than changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico, whoever. This is a little different than all that silliness. This is serious big boy politics, big boy, big girl politics. This is serious stuff. We're talking lives of people, not just the naming of something. And we're talking true lives of people. And you're right, Scott, if they were to drop something like that, I don't know how the rest of the world would react. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people in the United States, and again, I could be wrong, that are going to be supportive of it because it shows that we're the big, powerful empire of the United States. Well, I would say, and I said this to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, remember, if you look at history, every single empire has fallen. Everyone. That's just kind of the way it works. And to think that we're going to be different, no, we're not. But anyway, I would hope, and again, I know that after the election, many of us lost faith in the American public, but I would hope that we would be better than that we would look at this and truly be better human beings than that. Forget the idea of being American. How about being a human being? That's just, I don't know. And I guess maybe sometimes I don't think about it, Scott. I tried not to think about it.
Well, bombing traditionally has not worked as far as cowing the other side. I hesitate to call them the enemy.
Yeah, but we got better bombs
people.
now. We really do have better bombs now.
Yeah, but it's tended only to create more resistance and more rejection of the individuals dropping the bombs. I think that there would be outrage and condemnation of the United States for doing something like that. And I just wanted to I think that this is part and parcel, although it may seem to be off topic, An American teacher who was held in Russia for the past 3 years was released, I think, yesterday. And there's going to be apparently another person released today. And Trump wouldn't name the person. And he would not say what Russia had gotten in return for the release. So Russia got something. Putin got something out of the deal. But Trump wouldn't say what. I don't know if that's the Hegseth, Ukraine thing. Ukraine's not going to be part of NATO, and we're going to reject this and we're going to reject that, and we're not going to help anymore, and this, that, and the other. But it would not surprise me. I mean, with Trump's talking before in the first time around about putting a nuclear bomb into a hurricane, bombing North Korea with nuclear weapons before someone talked him out of it, apparently. I mean, assuming these are true, for them to get together and decide. I had not thought about dropping a huge one step down from a nuclear weapon.
Well, and let's face it, what we're talking about right now, with what Scott has suggested, is the same thing that 3 years ago we thought Russia could do to Ukraine. And look how we looked at Russia with these thoughts of what the Russians could do. Then we found out the Russians were paper tigers, pretty much. But we were talking, what if they bombed Ukraine with these bombs that they've got, with this technology that they've got, and how horrible that would be. Well, now we're talking about the United States in the same vein as it relates to Gaza. I mean, I'm sorry. Now we've placed ourselves really right there, right along with Russia. And, we do not have any, moral high ground anymore. And the fact is that once you lose any kind of moral high ground, it generally comes back to bite you in the butt. Because, again, we've always said that when Trump's done getting rid of all the people that supposedly you hate and want out of the country and all that, they'd never stop. They're going to come look for somebody else, and it could be you. Well, other countries look at this and say, okay, if the United States could do this to Gaza, if the United States could do this to here or there, what's to keep them from doing it to us? It's a reasonable thought on their part. So, the Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or a comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. JCIS is a publication of Nova Works, a scholarly repository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description.